So we're going to talk today a little bit about how we can cultivate responsible AI principles in the classroom. We would love for this to be an interactive session. We would love for you to talk to your neighbor. We design learning. We couldn't just stand here. That's just what we do. So we have a couple of outcomes. Again, couldn't get out of here without giving you some learning outcomes. The first is we're going to identify a problem space in AI and education. We're going to draw some inspiration from some use cases. We've got some fantastic guest faculty who are going to give you some examples of how they're implementing responsible AI practices in their classrooms. We're going to ideate opportunities for interventions, and then we're going to discuss how to apply responsible principles for learning practice. Does that sound great? We've got some energy this morning. We're going to do it. Can I get a yeah? Yeah. Okay. All right. So the first is your problem space. It's great if it's a teaching and learning problem. It doesn't have to be, but some problem you have around AI and learning. You have some worksheets on the table. If you want to write your problem down, you can absolutely do that. We got some pins in the back. If someone needs pins, just raise their hand. We'll get them to you. And so this could be anything. It could be my students are overly reliant on AI. My students are those conscientious objectors that the dean mentioned earlier. Someone keeps giving me AI slop, and I don't know how to have that conversation with them. Somebody I know just feels really overwhelmed, or I feel really overwhelmed with how to use AI. So just, if you have a problem, write it down for me.
And on the other side, it could also be something like, I really want to solve this problem, but I'm not quite sure how. It doesn't have to be specific just to student learning. It could be any learning problem.
Okay, so we have people that are done. Can you just shout out what your problem is? If you feel like sharing. People trust AI too much. Ooh, that's a good one. I worry that students are turning in work generated by AI, a fear no one else in this room shares. Anybody else got any? Ooh, the prototype problem. I think that's going to come up later in this conversation. Oh, no one's toiling anymore. Those kids. That is where learning happens, yeah. Okay, the confusion problem. Students have so many different things going on that don't know when. I'm just going to take like two more if you want to shout them out. Anyone from this side of the room? Oh, I could have counted on Eric to be really philosophical about this one. Yeah, and a solution with an uncertain problem. Yes. I'm going to summarize this. The real CIO's problem. Students aren't using the campus-provided tools because they don't understand that their tuition is going towards them. They're already paying for them. Okay, we got lots of problems, great problems. I'm going to pass it to Julie. Well, we already did the parent share. We're tightening up a little bit. So I'm going to pass it to Julie now.
So our vision is that all Longhorns will lead creative, responsible, and ethical applications of AI in their fields. And we think that all three are important. And we wanted to share today 3 use cases of Longhorns who we feel are leading the way in this space. And I think we heard from Bobby in the panel before about how important it is to showcase what different people are doing. And we think there's a couple different types of interventions here on these problems that we hope will spark some ideas for you. So I'm going to start off with my example. So I'm also a teacher here at UT. I've been teaching here for 15 years, and I teach across design, pedagogy, and technology. And actually, one of my students from last semester is in the room, so Sergio, it's nice to see you. So he's going to recognize this. But one of the things that is really important to me is that we give people agency. So Mario talked about how making ethical choices is a personal decision. I believe that, but I also think our students need some help because they don't quite have that ethical muscle built up yet about how to choose and be diligent about when to use it and when not to use it. One of my friends from my postdoc actually wrote this paper, which I think is really important, and it's called Generative AI Enhances Individual Creativity but Reduces the Collective Diversity of Novel Content. In order to change the world, to start things that change the world, we need our students' creativity. So we have to think about ways to make sure that we are enabling and augmenting their creativity with AI, but also how they shouldn't offload their creativity or their originality in all cases. So how do we address that in the classroom? I teach a design pedagogy class. I'm really worried about my students not offloading their creativity, because their creativity, their innate human creativity, is going to be the thing that changes the world. So I am a very AI-forward person. I know I'm kind of holding the other side of that coin this morning, but I'm a very AI-forward person. I was really excited to introduce AI into my class, but I needed to solve this problem. So I developed what I call an expose intervention for my students. It takes 5 minutes, and it was really effective. So I gave my students just a little bit of a talk on this paper, where the paper explains how, especially for novice creatives, AI can make you really feel like you are the most creative person in the room. It can make you feel like you can do anything. It makes you feel like you're a designer. So I was putting together some slides for an upcoming strategy meeting that I had, and I used Claude to help me make these slides, and I thought they were really nice. And my partner is a designer, and I showed them to my partner, and she was like, "You made that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Those look really, really nice. That's so great. I didn't have to do them for you." It was awesome. And then literally, I showed them in my meeting. It was a great meeting. And then the next, the 2 meetings later, I was in another meeting, and this is the person's slides. Okay, so what you can see here is that Claude is making us feel more creative, but even in our institution, it's pulling down our individual creativity. So you have to decide. For my strategy update, it's not that big of a deal that my slides don't necessarily stand out. In fact, it might be beneficial for them to be embedded and look like having a structure. But if I'm doing something more creative, where say I'm giving a talk at another university and I want to make sure that my original voice is in, I might use something that I created myself, which I did. Create this slide myself. So I just talk with my students about this paper, and I give them some examples, and then I do the intervention. So in our class, it's a teaching class, and students have to develop an object, and Sergio can validate how difficult this is. They have to develop an object from scratch, okay? Envision a project from scratch to teach someone a topic that they found difficult to learn. So students teach things like semiotics. They teach things like graphic design elements. They teach things like drawing in perspective. And they make the objects, and then they have to create a pitch video where they teach that object to someone else. When AI came on the scene, what I noticed is that when students were doing is that they were they were amazed by the AI capability to create these pitch videos, so they were offloading the entire teaching process to AI. And as you can see, these are the kinds of things that they were turning in. But this is what I really wanted. Which video do you want to see as a teacher? 1 or 2? 2. Okay, so I think unless there's a small intervention, like an expose lecture, the students think you want to see this, right? It's not that they're trying to take shortcuts. It actually takes time to make something like this. But they think you want to see something that they perceive as shiny and clean, but underneath it, there's no substance, right? So all I did in class, right, Sergio, is show this video. It took 5 minutes. I didn't get a single AI-generated pitch video after that. What's really important to me as the teacher is that I had to understand that the learning outcome was the student actually going through the process of teaching. It's a teaching class, right? They could offload the making of a script or something like that, but doing the actual teaching was a fundamental task that they needed to be able to do. Just a short expose intervention made a huge difference for me in my class and my students, and I encourage you to think about ways. I didn't bar the use of AI, but I helped them understand and have the agency to choose when they would and when they wouldn't use it. So that's my use case.
Hello. Hi, I'm Charlee Garden, and I am here to talk about another example. First, I'm going to give you context. So I have launched what's called Impact Lab. We solely work with undergraduates. We are innovation for public good, and we work in 2 problem domains: health outcomes, AI, and ethics, and food systems and sustainability. Now, and we teach practicums on those. Now, the context is, and this is important, is open to all majors, all backgrounds. Open to all classes, freshman through senior. And no coding required. And we absolutely want to make an impact. So you can imagine there's some good teaching, learning challenges built in there, correct? So I just want to tell you a few things I notice. First of all, I notice that students that take these courses absolutely care and have a passion for making a difference. I also notice they're really, really good at problems with answers at the back of the book, right? And it's really hard for them to stretch into that ambiguity of unknown, right? I also notice that they absolutely care about changing the world, right? And they think a lot about this, and they're here to make a difference. So after the first week of class, guess what? 90% of my students come back and they say, I've got an answer. We're gonna build an app. We're gonna build an app, we're gonna build an AI chatbot, we're gonna solve everything. And they come with this sort of solution looking for a problem, right? So here's the good news with AI. And I am also very AI forward while also being really, really clear about AI as intended use. Like, I fundamentally think it's an amazing tool, and I think that you need a license to drive a car. Bottom line, right? So for me, the good news is they want to build an app. Years ago, I might have spent weeks trying to encourage people, fall in love with the problem, see what someone really needs, right? Instead, I'm like, you know what? Next class, everybody in the class, because of AI tools, because it's possible to do it so quickly, we stand up apps that make an API call. For anyone who doesn't know, that's just a bridge to any of the LLMs, Claude, Anthropic, ChatGPT, whatever we want, so they can say they've done an AI app and get it up and standing and send it to their friends, right? So that's what we do. But now the learning happens. So we do that, class 3. So then the question becomes, so what, now what? And this is kind of what I want to talk about. So the first reason I like to do this, and again, I'm not teaching a coding course, so we're absolutely cutting and pasting, right? But they want to make an impact. Now they have an app. So the first thing it does is it takes the mystique out. It absolutely shows people all those things with API calls, all those API things, you can do one in 30 minutes. That's important. Right? The second thing it does, and this is really important to me, it highlights that human-AI interaction is a skill. And I cannot say this enough. Probably you know this, but I'm going to repeat it. Human plus AI is often less effective than human alone. Human, and there's a lot of research on this I could point to. Human plus AI is often less effective than AI alone. It is not hard to learn the behavior of AI and learn how to use it, But our instincts are to use it wrong. Our instincts are to defer to it when we should be deferring to our intelligence, and to absolutely override it when it's smarter than us. And that's not everybody, but that's research over and over, and we can teach that. One of the pieces of research I've done is a 30-minute intervention that sets up like a what's the human-AI interaction, and we did it on use cases with pre-med students and how they'll come across AI in their future. And then the post is with just 30 minutes, they can change their human-AI interaction. It's not hard, we're just not talking about it, right? And so the way I like to talk about it, I'll give you just a half a story, is I'm an endurance athlete. And in endurance sports, we have something called a DNF. Anyone know? DNF can stand for did not finish, or it could stand for do nothing foolish. Now, here you are, mile 32 of a 50-mile race. Not you, but imagine somebody. Their hip is starting to hurt, okay? There's this moment to make a choice. Keep running and potentially do something foolish and be injured, or keep running and show that persistence matters, or stop and take a DNF. And the thing that I want to say, AI puts output all the time. What I want to help students learn is which DNF is it for them at this moment in time? Do you take the advice or do you not? DNF or DNF? When is it foolish to take it? When do you want to quit? Does that make sense? And it's not that hard. There's some really cool techniques around that. And then the last thing I want to say, so these are the apps, again, my students, cranked these up 30 minutes. They're great. Both of them, and then the good news is, once we get that out of the way, we can actually focus on design and impact and what we really want to do in these really big problem spaces. And for some people, it still is an app. It still is AI. That makes sense. For others, they do something really different. So I don't know if you can see this, but this just came hot off the press from my class right now. This is a project on educating people around the greenhouse gases of the foods they eat. Guess what? They had an app, right? Then they really understood through once they got that up and running, but yeah, so what, that they needed something really different. And they made these are all materials. It's watermelon, cheese, and meat. They're weighted differently based on the greenhouse gases. And they have you guess, and then you pick them up, and you see which one's the heaviest, and they're weighted proportionally. And now we have a really cool learning experience, right? And so what I want to say is I think AI is incredibly powerful. I believe it's the human-AI interaction skill set that we need to be focusing on so we can use it the best, and I use it all the time, okay? And I want to say thank you. For any of you doing this work, I heard a couple of you, if you're moving fast and doing this within this space, you need help. Cody helps, Kasey's helping. It's hard to use a lot of these tools in this system. You need tokens, you need credits, you need codes, you need approval, all of that. And they're making it much easier to do that. So that's it, thanks.
Hello, everybody, good morning. My name is Sinclair Emoghene. Oh no, I don't need it. Yeah. Well, I'm a dancer from Nigeria, and I compare movements, collate movements, and make them into archives. So my project really is looking at how I can teach AI how to read dance. And I know you're saying, why do we need that? But you have been here and we've been talking about LLMs, Claude, ChatGPT. They cannot read movement, they can give you text. So when we got the Sage at UT, I was like, okay, my students can use this now. So I gave the model everything it needs, the textbook, the textbook, the videos, so it can help my students learn. But they were not learning anything because they couldn't learn dance from the model. And why is this important? I teach dance history, so I'm teaching global dance. What happens in that class is we compare dances from different cultures, histories, and geography. So we will look at something like a ballroom dancing, where it's all frame and we're moving, right? And they want to do that. But we also compare that ballroom dancing to something similar in Africa, where it's all shoulder and rhythm and all of that. I promised not to dance, but I'm dancing now. So I'm waiting for my $1 bills. But you can see how complex this is. We're dealing with American students who've never traveled probably outside of Texas or outside the United States, and I'm a Nigerian telling them about Yoruba dance and how that could be related to Orisha dance in Cuba. And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, we're gonna dance it and get up. But they want to be part of the AI conversation, and they don't know how to. So the first thing I think about AI in my classroom is how much it can expose them to global dance cultures, but also having them feel like they have access for the first time, that they can also be with their peers, using AI tools and claiming they're brilliant. They want to feel like that as well. I think that access is important. The other thing I did was looking at how they were learning. Was this tool really improving their intelligence? I don't think so. I think it made them curious. The part that was really, really helpful was looking at geographical context, the things that people do outside of the United States, and how we can kind of cross-culturally evaluate that. That, for me, was a kind of a lift improvement, if you will. And so I decided to go into this research where I'm collating movement from around the world. I'm using motion capture to capture movement, tokenize them, and use them to train AI to understand human movement in 3 dimensions. So I have collated about 155 dances from around the world, Africa, the United States, and Caribbeans. And now the AI can actually tell you, that movement is not correct. We think you have some knee problems like me, or we think the weight size is different from this and that. But the ethical thing there is that we're putting guardrails as well, so it's not just saying everything and everything, like what you get from YouTube videos. It's giving you accurate information, but also informing you, well, you need to stop here and consider this. Or stop here, get up and dance so that you can see what it does in real time. That is how I use AI. It's exciting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Charlie and Sinclair, for sharing your examples, and Julie. So we're gonna jump back now. So we're gonna go back to your problem. And Julie's gonna talk about the interventions that we heard about.
So I think we heard about 4 different interventions to dig into some of these concerns that I think I heard people saying, which is we really want to be forward and make sure our students are thriving in an AI future, and we want to make sure that we're protecting their learning, right? Both at the same time. And I think we heard 4 interventions around that space. The first is just a simple expose lecture to help students have more diligence when they're making choices about what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. The second is using augmentation to build skills. So in Charlie's case, they're using Claude and Claude Code to help students build up and research different ideas. And then the students are sort of coming to the problem after that and having this realization of the augmentation between human and AI being the PowerPoint. So that augmentation to build skills. And then with Sinclair, he used UT Sage, and that is an example of using a tool or an agent, in this case, to expose different students, not necessarily teaching them how to dance, but exposing them to different geographic cultures and dance cultures across the world, which is harder for American students to grasp. So creating an agent or tutor, in this case in UT Sage. But there also might be other different types of interventions that you think would be helpful to ensure that we are making good, responsible choices. We're being both AI forward and AI responsible.
So now we're going to go back to your problem. You don't have to design a learning experience. Maybe that's not the scope of your problem, but maybe it's a conversation. Showing someone, I love the example earlier of like, just show someone how to make a PowerPoint deck and then start talking about how they might be able to use the tool in other places. So given the examples we showed today, take a little inspiration, write down some things you would like to do to solve your problem. Everybody's writing a ton. I love that. I'm gonna, just so we have some time to talk about it, you can jump ahead to, if you've written your problem down or your proposed intervention down later already, this might lead to. I think all of the examples we heard led to some really powerful conversations, some experiences where a light bulb moment happened for people. Whether it's the AI telling you not moving your knees correctly, or Julie's example about the video and the student understanding that she doesn't want an AI video. She wants to see her student. So you can write that down, or if you would like, maybe share at your table. What solution, what intervention did you come up with for your problem? And then what do you think it might lead to? So I'm gonna let you all have that conversation.
All right, everybody. We'd love to get some shares. Kasey and I have mics. So let's get some shares about something that you have noticed you would like to and that might lead to. Volunteer.
Hi, so I have noticed that I had was students aren't practicing their critical thinking, their analytical, and their writing skills as much because they're relying on AI to generate this sort of like pristine text. And we sort of talked about like what we can do, sort of having an AI assignment from the beginning, maybe an expose assignment where they see some AI-generated text according to a prompt, and we dissect it as a group, or they generate something based on a prompt, and then they critique it themselves as part of an independent project, or maybe even breaking things into chunks, and so having them write, like one small thing instead of like an entire essay or something like that. And we talked too about this might lead to students understanding better the limitations of AI and relying on their own thoughts as sort of a basis to interact with AI.
And where do you work, Haley?
Oh, sorry. I'm Haley. I work in liberal arts instructional technology services.
Welcome. Okay. How about another example? Montse?
Hello. As I mentioned, the issue that I was thinking about was the uncertainty of students of when, how am I allowed to use AI? And I think the potential solution would be to empower faculty to determine before the semester starts, okay, what sort of interactions do I want in my classroom? What sort of assignments do I want to assign? Do I want them using AI actively in specific assignments throughout the whole course? And that way, when faculty has clarity of how they want to incorporate or not AI in their classroom, they will be able to communicate that to the students much clearer. So that's the idea. I think that would lead to a standard where students know where to look to determine what the rules of the game are, probably putting it in the syllabus or coming up with a standardized format that maybe we could spread across faculty would make it easier to communicate that.
Hi, mine is, I mentioned before, students are overly invested in pretty pictures drawn by AI, and it's that time of semester when students are presenting their final presentations of their semester-long projects. So I would like students to explain the problem they're solving and to say how their solution works. And what I think that will lead to is depending on AI for something other than the pretty pictures.
Great, thank you. Any other volunteers? One more? I'm a teacher, so I'm pretty patient. One more share? Great, thank you. And if you could say your name and where you're from, that'd be awesome.
Hi, Marcos Palacios from the Department of Computer Science. One mess our coworkers have made, right? What I want to see if anybody can share about this is, does it mean that the traditional method of trying to motivate the student in the classroom to interact with the material now has to be a nice show so that we can compete with what's on their hand or the laptop? What are the things that we are supposed to do to motivate them to be interested in the content rather than some nice activity in the classroom where we can draw their attention to that rather than all the things happening on their cell phone? Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we can get to that with our set of principles. So last year, we worked with many people in this room to come up with a definition for what responsible adoption of AI looks like for teaching and learning. And this, I would put the the forward before this. This is what AI forward, AI responsible adoption looks like for teaching and learning. And that learning could be anything from the classroom, but it also could be for learning in your environments where you're with staff and onboarding and things like that. But the definition is that it is the adoption of AI that facilitates the achievement of learning outcomes. Those are the things we want students to know and be able to do, and the mindsets that we want them to inhabit, and fosters human development, right? So that learning is an innate. It is a sacred space, and it is innate human activity. And so we want to ensure that we're using AI to foster human development for all members of our campus community and not use it in ways that would harm that learning or harm that human development. And so we came, we spent about 9 months making this, getting this definition in community, and then we have 8 principles that can help guide that AI forward, AI responsible adoption in the educational space.
And you have them on your paper here, but I want to frame these as a way to have these kinds of conversations with students. And I think even, maybe you have your intervention together, but grounding it in one of these principles can help you have that conversation with students. Because I think that if we have a lot of people, if we show them our values, they can reflect those values back at us. So that's why we thought it was important to lay 8 principles underneath that definition. The first is literacy. So fluency in AI principles and its limitations. And I look at these all the time, but for some reason I need to read them off this piece of paper. And the next is intention. So evaluate when AI can be used versus should be used. That also includes times not to use AI. A theme I heard across what you shared here today was helping students understand when it's not appropriate versus appropriate to use AI. Intention matters a lot. Came up again and again in our conversation today. The next is balance. So what are the evolving benefits and drawbacks to using AI? So Julie's example, it could help you get rid of, it can lower your individual creativity. We're going to talk later today about the sustainability of AI technologies. These are all principles we should think about when we're thinking about balancing our use of AI. Agency has come up a lot today, and it's come up a lot already in our conversations. Are we allowing people to make decisions for themselves? Do humans have control over their decision making and the output of what's happening to them? The next one is ethics. Ethics is a big part of the conversation we're having today. It's our friends at Good Systems. It's their goal, which is to evaluate, I misread that. So there are lots of ethical principles underneath using AI. One of those could be something like, are we looking for bias and discrimination? How is this AI developed? The next principle we have is relationships. This one is really dear to me. Are we diminishing the learning relationships in our classroom by using AI? When you're thinking of your intervention, when you want to use AI in the classroom, think about, are you diminishing the relationship of a peer-to-peer relationship or a faculty-to-student relationship? Those are the relationships that we're here to build. So if we're using AI to displace those, might not be a responsible use of AI.
And there are lots of different ways to use AI to grow and foster those relationships as well.
The next is academic integrity, so came up a lot. Are we using these AI in ways that upholds the honor code and our values as a university? And the last one is stewardship. Thankful for Cam for raising this a lot today. Are we protecting student data, privacy? Are we being good stewards of what content students or intellectual property students are bringing to the table? So as you think about having these conversations with students, I would encourage you to help bring these principles to the table. It can be really helpful for grounding those conversations. I think we are just about out of time. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put up, if you would like to, you can apply one of those principles to your space. And we were gonna talk about doing that as a pool, but we aren't able to. But I really thank you for everyone. If you have a problem, if your problem space was too big for this worksheet today, which most of our problem spaces are, I would encourage you to email us at oat@utexas.edu. We love having these conversations with people about what they want to do in their space and how they want to solve these teaching and learning problems. We would love to hear from you. Thank you.